For centuries, there's been a simple, dangerous myth about the Native American nations of the American South. The idea that they were fragile, easily broken, and unable to govern themselves as Western expansion pushed westward. This myth, of course, was an excuse for one of the worst betrayals in American history. It paved the way for the forced removal of thousands of people from their homelands, a terrible tragedy known as the Trail of Tears. But to accept that myth is to misunderstand the very nature of the Cherokee people. The truth is, their resilience was not a desperate reaction to outside pressure. It was an unbreakable spirit forged across centuries through intellectual genius, sophisticated governance, and a relentless commitment to self-definition. How did a nation fight the United States government in the Supreme Court, and after losing everything, rebuild itself into one of the largest economic and political forces in Native America? This is the story of the Cherokee Nation and the secrets of their unbreakable spirit. It's a story of how a culture built on democratic leadership and a simple yet powerful written language refused to be dissolved by betrayal, force, or time. The foundation of a nation. Long before European settlers drastically changed the political landscape, the Cherokee people possessed a deeply established, sophisticated society. Their foundation was built on two complementary political units that existed at the town level: the white government and the red government. The white government primarily managed domestic affairs and was in control during periods of peace, particularly beginning with the spring planting season. The red government was responsible for managing issues of war and external defense. This duality ensured the community was prepared for both stability and conflict, depending on the season and the political climate. Furthermore, traditional Cherokee society was matrilineal, meaning that kinship and property were inherited through the mother's clan. This structure provided women with a prominent and authoritative role. They held significant power within the tribe and possessed a strong voice in community decisions. The Cherokee political spirit demonstrated that shared leadership and democratic inclusivity were not external ideas they adopted later, but an inherent component of their identity. This internal strength is one of the foundational secrets to why their political structure refused to break even under existential duress. The Cherokee displayed an early and pragmatic spirit of adaptation by quickly adopting new tools and weapons introduced by Europeans, a practical move that helped them sustain their people. However, this adaptability intensified their interactions with the settlers, which over time led to escalating conflict, disease, and the eventual forced cession of large portions of ancestral land. In the face of these rising external threats, the Cherokee Nation had to double down on what made them strong. Sequoyah's great gift, the syllabary. The most profound expression of Cherokee genius and national ambition came in the early 19th century with the invention of the Cherokee syllabary. Sequoyah, a Cherokee silversmith, completed his unique writing system around 1821. This innovation was unparalleled because, unlike alphabetic systems, Sequoyah's syllabary consisted of 86 characters, each one representing a distinct syllable of the Tsalagi language. This invention triggered a rapid societal transformation. The majority of the Cherokee people quickly became literate, often achieving literacy faster than neighboring Euro-American settler communities. This achievement was far more than a cultural accomplishment. It was a sophisticated political maneuver. By enabling a written language, the syllabary solidified internal coherence and provided the technological foundation for modern nationhood. In 1825, the Cherokee Nation formally adopted Sequoyah's syllabary as its official writing system, utilizing it for essential functions such as record-keeping, education, and communication. This immediate and institutional utilization of the syllabary was the engine of political resistance. It enabled the tribe to transcribe and preserve countless laws and traditions that might otherwise have been lost, especially during periods of forced displacement. The ultimate institutional manifestation of this literacy was the creation of the Cherokee Phoenix, which was the first Native American newspaper utilizing the syllabary for publication. This ability to print laws, circulate information, and project the image of a sophisticated self-governing body was a vital strategic effort. It directly countered the United States government's narrative that the Cherokee were an uncivilized people requiring removal. The assertion of modern nationhood. Building on this powerful cultural and intellectual foundation, the Cherokee Nation fundamentally reshaped its governance in the early 1800s. They moved toward a democratic system, adopting a written constitution and a formal legal code. This new framework included an elected principal chief, a vice chief, and a council. This formalized political structure provided the necessary framework for a fierce defense of sovereignty against increasing encroachment from the state of Georgia and the federal government. Principal Chief John Ross articulated the nation's position with unwavering clarity, explicitly challenging the notion that the Cherokee were foreigners or mere occupants on the land. He asserted that the Cherokees were original inhabitants of America, standing on the soil of their own territory. The boundaries of this territory, he reminded government officials, were defined by treaties made with the United States government. By placing confidence in the treaty stipulations, the Cherokee Nation publicly declared its refusal to recognize the sovereignty of any state, including Georgia, within the defined limits of their territory. This steadfast assertion of political integrity, backed by a written constitution and high literacy, demonstrated a commitment to self-determination that would soon be tested in a brutal crucible. The legal battle for existence. The Cherokee strategy of adapting Western legal and political structures to defend their ancient rights met its ultimate test with the rise of the removal crisis. The discovery of gold on Cherokee lands in Georgia increased the pressure from President Andrew Jackson and his supporters, eventually leading to the passage of the Indian Removal Act of 1830. In the face of this relentless pressure, the Cherokee Nation chose resistance through legal means. They challenged Georgia's laws that sought to restrict their freedoms on tribal lands within the United States judicial system. This strategic legal defense was in itself an act of profound resilience, utilizing the very structures of the nation attempting to displace them. The effort resulted in a series of landmark United States Supreme Court cases that sought to define the fundamental relationship between Native Americans and the United States government, American tribes, and the federal and state governments. In the 1832 decision of Worcester versus Georgia, the Supreme Court affirmed that tribes were separate political entities immune from Georgia state jurisdiction. This ruling constituted a decisive legal victory for the Cherokee Nation, upholding the sovereignty that Chief Ross had tirelessly asserted. The Supreme Court determined that Georgia had no authority over the Cherokee Nation's land or its inhabitants. This ruling, in effect, should have secured the nation's ancestral lands. However, the political failure to enforce this constitutional judgment stands as one of the great betrayals in United States history. President Jackson famously refused to heed the court's decision. This showed the Cherokee people that legal justice was ultimately subordinate to executive political will and raw power. The Cherokee spirit was required to remain resilient, not only against external military force, but against the failure of the United States constitutional system itself. The Great Betrayal. Undeterred by the Supreme Court's ruling, President Jackson and his allies used political leverage, threats, and incentives to persuade tribes to sign removal treaties. In 1835, a small faction of Cherokees who did not represent the recognized leadership or the majority will signed the Treaty of New Echota. Principal Chief John Ross and the overwhelming majority of the Cherokee people protested this agreement as fraudulently executed. They became known as the National Party, unified in their opposition to abandoning their homeland. As a rebuttal to the illegal signing, the Cherokee Nation, led by Ross, organized an official protest petition in 1836, which was signed by the chief council members and 2,174 citizens. This widespread organized resistance demonstrated a national coherence that refused to be internally dissolved. Despite the protest from the Cherokee people and the strong political opposition of figures like Daniel Webster and Henry Clay in the United States Senate, the treaty was ratified by a margin of just one vote in 1835. Before we continue, If you're finding this deep dive into the true history of the Cherokee Nation compelling, take a moment and click that like button below. It's a simple thing, but it truly helps our channel continue to bring these important, often untold stories of the American West to a wider audience. If you're not already subscribed, hitch your wagon to our channel for more genuine history. Nunna daul Isunyi, the trail where they cried. The fraudulent ratification of the treaty paved the way for the forced removal. In 1838, United States military forces were deployed to forcibly evict approximately 15,000 Cherokees from their traditional homelands stretching across Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, and North Carolina. This 1,000-mile journey to Indian Territory, present-day Oklahoma, is known in the Cherokee language as Nunna daul Isunyi, which translates to the trail where they cried. The suffering inflicted by the removal was immense. Nearly 4,000 Cherokees died from exposure, hunger, disease, and exhaustion during the forced march. Eyewitness accounts illustrate the profound barbarity of the event. A Cherokee woman named Wananauhi recounted how soldiers drove people at bayonet point into camps, allowing them to take only the clothes they wore. She detailed the moment an old man was refused permission to offer one final prayer in his home, met instead with a brutal oath and a rough shove. The trauma of the Trail of Tears had a complex geographic consequence that shaped the future of the Cherokee people. While the majority were relocated to the west, a small group of between 800 and 1,000 Cherokees remained in the eastern United States. These individuals either successfully hid in the remote mountain regions, managed to keep land under terms of prior treaties, or walked back after having been removed. This small, resilient remnant formed the basis of what is today the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. The collective pain of removal paradoxically resulted in the creation of distinct, geographically separated, but equally sovereign entities. The reassertion of nationhood. The core principle of the Cherokee unbreakable spirit today is their ability to reestablish and persistently assert political and economic sovereignty following catastrophic loss. The trauma of the Trail of Tears did not diminish the Cherokees' commitment to their identity. Instead, it fueled a renewed determination to protect their culture and govern themselves. Today, the Cherokee people are unified under the banner of three distinct, federally recognized sovereign governments: the Cherokee Nation, the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma, and the Cherokee Nation of Texas Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, EBCI, and the United Keetoowah Band of Cherokee Indians in Oklahoma, UKB. The United States government and courts have repeatedly affirmed that these three entities are separate political bodies, each possessing unique histories and legal standing. The modern Cherokee Nation government, headquartered in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, is a robust example of this self-determination. Their constitutional structure utilizes three separate and distinct branches: legislative, executive, and judicial, mirroring the United States checks and balance system to ensure both internal stability and external political legitimacy. A critical element of this reasserted sovereignty is the Cherokee Nation Marshal Service. This law enforcement agency maintains jurisdiction across the 14-county reservation area, demonstrating the practical assertion of tribal authority. The Marshal Service is cross-deputized with over 90 federal, state, county, and city law enforcement offices. This functional arrangement ensures seamless services and provides a real-world example of concurrent tribal, state, and federal jurisdiction. Economic self-determination. In the contemporary context, economic power provides the ultimate measure of the unbreakable spirit. The tribe's business arm, Cherokee Nation Businesses, CNB, operates a diverse portfolio of enterprises, including manufacturing and gaming. This economic engine is massive, making the Cherokee Nation one of the largest employers in northeast Oklahoma. Combined with government figures, the nation employs about 11,000 people in the region. Its total economic impact in Oklahoma for fiscal year 2018 was $2.16 billion. This financial self-sufficiency allows the nation to fund its sophisticated governmental structure, vital community services, and health programs, minimizing reliance on federal funding and thereby bolstering political autonomy. The Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, EBCI, provides a similar model of fiscal resilience, funding its schools, water, sewer, fire, and emergency services entirely without assistance from the federal government. The ultimate act of resilience. Despite achieving political and economic stability, the Cherokee Nation faces an immediate cultural crisis, the existential threat to the Tsalagi language, which is written using Sequoyah's syllabary. Tribal surveys paint a critical picture, estimating only about 2,000 to 2,200 fluent speakers worldwide. Alarmingly, most of these fluent speakers are elderly, 70 or older, and the nation loses an average of about 8 elders per month. The Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians faces a parallel crisis, with fewer than 200 fluent speakers among their 9,600 residents. For the Cherokee, the commitment to language is not nostalgic, it is existential. As one elder noted, speaking a language means we have a culture. There's a big difference between people who have a culture and people with a history. The comprehensive national response to this crisis is the final and most profound act of continuity, directly succeeding Sequoyah's innovation almost 200 years prior. The Cherokee Nation, CN, established the Cherokee Immersion School in 2001 as a critical language preservation program. This is an elementary school that instructs students from pre-kindergarten through 6th grade using the Cherokee language exclusively. Students graduating from this school are typically fluent speakers of the language. The nation's commitment is demonstrated through massive infrastructure investment, including the completion of the state-of-the-art Durban-Feeling Language Center in Tahlequah. Furthermore, the CN has strategically expanded immersion school campuses to Greasy and Kenwood, often locating them in areas with high densities of existing Cherokee speakers to leverage the surrounding community's fluency. The Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, EBCI, has invested similarly, operating the new Ketawa Academy as a total immersion program that begins in preschool. The EBCI has invested over $4.5 million in this effort, which includes creating curriculum, teacher training programs, and a post-secondary degree program for future certified teachers of the Cherokee language. This commitment, which deploys radical educational and technological tools against cultural erasure, links the modern nation directly to its innovative past. The current expression of the unbreakable spirit rests on the ability of the Cherokee people to define themselves, rejecting external limitations and stereotypes. Leaders like the late Principal Chief Wilma Mankiller strongly advocated for this internal self-definition. She affirmed that Cherokee identity is inherent, regardless of external validation or government documentation. An Indian is an Indian regardless of the degree of Indian blood or which little government card they do or do not possess. This ongoing struggle to maintain language, govern billions in enterprise, and enforce laws across jurisdictional lines defines the unbroken, unbreakable spirit of the Cherokee Nation today. This story of political betrayal and cultural survival is a heavy one, and we know that many of you have strong feelings about the history we've covered. What moment in this story, from Sequoyah's genius to Chief Ross's refusal to surrender, do you think best defines the true spirit of the Cherokee Nation? We read the majority of your comments and enjoy hearing your opinions, so please like, comment, and subscribe before you ride off into the sunset. If you like this video, be sure to check out some more history we've covered in the video in the top left corner.